I'll never forget it. The air was crisp, almost biting that morning in the Ohio timber. Hazy. I was set up, watching, waiting, and then, just like that, this magnificent 10-point buck, a real monarch, just appeared, yards away.
Wow.
Minutes later, my shot was true. A truly unforgettable hunt. And honestly, none of it would have happened without my hunting land lease.
That's a fantastic story, and it really grounds what we're talking about today.
Exactly. We often hear about hunting leases as, a modern solution, maybe even a recent trend for getting access to private land.
Right, that's the common perception.
But what if I told you the true story is, well, far older, much more complex, and maybe even more beneficial than you've ever thought?
That's what we're diving into.
Today, yeah, we're pulling back the curtain on this really vital practice.
That's right. Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack the fascinating, really century-long history of hunting leases. Almost. We'll define precisely what these agreements actually are, look at how they've evolved, and maybe most importantly, show how they create a genuine win-win-win situation.
Win-win-win, okay.
Yeah, benefits for wildlife, for hunters needing access, and, of course, for the landowners themselves, the stewards of these properties.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll also get into the practical side, like how they're priced. It's a story that's much richer and more deeply embedded in our outdoor traditions than most people realize.
Okay, let's unpack this right away then. Before we even touch the history, let's just, make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
What exactly is a hunting lease? What's the basic definition?
Okay. At its core, a hunting lease is really just a simple bona fide agreement. Think of it like a legally binding contract.
Right, a contract.
Exactly. Between a landowner that's the lessor and a hunter or group of hunters, the lessee. And it grants that hunter access to the property specifically for hunting.
Got it.
What's really remarkable, though, is the flexibility in scale. We're not just talking about a small patch here. A hunting lease could be tiny, like just 1 acre, or theoretically it could cover, 1 million acres. Huge areas.
Wow, okay.
The key thing is that it's always a clear, agreed-upon arrangement for specific access rights.
And crucially, that agreement involves compensation, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a handshake and permission like maybe it used to be sometimes.
Exactly. That's the key difference.
There's a financial exchange involved, often that price per acre formula you hear about.
Precisely. Compensation is really the defining element that makes it a bona fide lease, distinct from just asking for free access, permission to hunt.
Right.
And yes, that price per acre formula is pretty much the industry standard, though the specifics of what's included can vary a lot. Depends on the landowner, the hunter's needs.
Makes sense.
These agreements can be incredibly flexible. They might be partial rights. Maybe you can only hunt deer or just during bow season, that sort of thing. Or it could be completely all-inclusive. That usually means access for all legal game, typically for a full 12 months.
Right, the whole year round.
Exactly. But regardless of the scope, the absolutely critical part is that all the details are clearly spelled out, everyone understands them, and it's all an assigned contract.
Super important.
Yeah, it provides clarity and protection for both sides, builds trust, accountability.
What I found really interesting in the research was this common idea, this misconception really, that leasing hunting land is like a new thing, a modern trend from the last few decades.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But the source material just blows that up, calls it a total myth. This has been around for nearly 100 years in America, right?
Indeed. It's a widely held belief, but it's just not accurate. The reality is, in America alone, hunting leases have been a regular thing for almost a century.
Wow.
It's far from a new concept. It's actually deeply ingrained.
Nearly a century. Okay, so where did it all start? Where do we trace the actual roots of this practice in the U.S.?
Well, to find the origins, you really need to look to Texas.
Texas, okay.
It's a state known for its huge private land holdings and, historically, really high demand for hunting access.
All right. Big state, lots of hunters.
Exactly. And it was there, back in the 1930s, that the modern hunting lease idea really started and took off pretty quickly. It became commonplace.
Why there, specifically?
Well, the demand for private land access was just so intense. Lots of hunters, lots of game, and landowners saw an opportunity. They started to formalize and, frankly, monetize that access through these lease agreements. It was just a practical solution, really, born out of necessity and opportunity.
Okay, 1930s Texas. So how did it spread from there?
Well, from Texas, this innovative idea spread pretty fast. By by the 1940s and 50s, it had already made its way across the Southeast.
Ah, the Southeast. Different landscape there.
Very different. You had vast areas of forest land, often owned by huge paper and timber companies.
Right, the big corporations.
Yeah, and these companies saw a pretty significant opportunity to boost their revenue by leasing out the hunting and trapping rights on their huge holdings.
Makes business sense.
Absolutely. And this period saw the birth of both, smaller leases for maybe a family or a small group, and these larger, more organized hunt clubs, especially in states like Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina.
Hunt clubs, okay?
Yeah, this could range from just a few dedicated guys to, hundreds of members, often with their own bylaws and rules, all operating under a formal lease with these big landowners.
Interesting. So it evolved.
It did. Then, by the late 1900s, the idea had spread even further. It reached the Northeast, the Mid-South, the Midwest. It really became a national practice. Though, as you'd expect, the way it worked, the regional dynamics varied quite a bit.
So it sounds like even though leasing spread everywhere, the type of lease changed depending on the region. You're saying the Northeast, Mid-South, Midwest look different from those huge corporate leases in the Southeast.
Absolutely. The landscape of who owned the land directly shaped the lease market. You hit it exactly. Well, the Southeast was defined by those massive, contiguous tracts owned by big companies. But these newer regions, the Northeast, Mid-South, Midwest, they were characterized more by smaller acreages, often family-owned farms or properties.
Right, smaller parcels.
Yeah. So instead of leasing thousands of acres from a corporation, hunters in those areas might be leasing, say, dozens or maybe hundreds of acres directly from a farmer or a landowner whose family had owned it for generations.
A more personal connection, maybe?
Often, yeah. This difference in land ownership really shaped the types and sizes of leases available. It fostered a more direct relationship between the hunter and the landowner in many cases.
That makes sense.
And what's really fascinating here is the big transition this represented for many areas. For generations, especially in these regions where it spread later, hunters often got access just by permission.
You mean for free?
Often, yes, for free. Landowners might grant access just out of neighborliness or tradition, a handshake deal. But over time, as these landowners in traditionally free access areas saw how leasing worked elsewhere, the mutual benefits, well, they learned the inherent value of their own land as a hunting resource.
Ah, they saw what others were doing.
Exactly. And this led to a gradual but definite shift toward the modern hunting lease system we see today.
You think that's fair?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
If you connect it to the bigger picture, it's a completely fair and just evolution. I mean, think about it. Landowners have substantial costs. Mortgages, property taxes, constant upkeep, liability concerns, other expenses.
True. It's not free to own land.
Not at all. So it's not just reasonable, it's arguably expected for them to be compensated for providing access to their ground for recreation. It's recognizing the real tangible value their land holds.
Okay, that transition makes a lot of sense. So let's get practical then. If you're a hunter listening to this, thinking about a lease, what does this mean for the bottom line? How are these things actually priced? What factors determine the cost?
Right, the cost. It's definitely not a fixed rate. It's a dynamic market, really, driven by several key factors.
Like what?
Well, the specific location of the property is a huge one, obviously. Land near cities or in really popular, sought-after hunting areas will cost more.
Supply and demand.
Pretty much. Then, the type and quality of game available plays a massive role. Properties known for trophy bucks or lots of turkeys, they'll naturally be more expensive.
Makes sense.
Even the time of year the lease covers can affect the price. An all-season lease costs more than one just for, say, turkey season.
Okay, so is there an average range people can expect, or is it just too variable?
We can give some guidelines. You can typically expect to pay somewhere in the range of, say, $10 to $30 per acre as a general average.
$10 to $30 an acre.
But, and this is important, that's just a starting point. The quality of the hunting land itself directly impacts that price. A pristine property, established game, diverse habitat, not much pressure, that's going to be at the higher end or even above that range.
Right.
Local demand is also huge. If hunting is super popular and competitive in a specific county or state, prices will just naturally be higher because of that competition.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think about a prime, say, 50-acre piece known for producing trophy whitetails in a high-demand state like Iowa. That might easily fetch $50, maybe $60 per acre, or even more.
Wow.
But then contrast that with a larger, maybe more rugged 500-acre tract in a less competitive area. Even with good game populations, it might be closer to that $10–15 per acre range.
Big difference.
Huge difference. And another interesting factor, landowner flexibility.
How so?
Well, if a landowner is willing to let the hunters make improvements like planting food plots, putting up permanent tower blinds, maybe clearing some trails, or even some light selective timber cutting to improve habitat.
Things that benefit the hunting.
Exactly. They might be able to charge a bit more because those improvements add long-term value to the property's hunting potential.
That makes a lot of sense. It really is a dynamic market. And I guess once you find a really good lease, you probably want to hang on to it.
Oh, absolutely. Consistency is really key. Good leases, the really desirable ones, often stay with the same group or family for 10 years, sometimes even longer.
10 years or more.
Yeah, that long-term stability really highlights the mutual value. For hunters, you get to truly manage and learn a piece of land. You build this deep understanding of the game, the habitat.
Right, you become invested.
Totally invested. And for the landowner, it means reliable income, less hassle with turnover, and ideally, a consistent, respectful group of people using their land who care about it.
So how do you find that fair price then?
At the end of the day, determining a fair price that really works for both sides, it just boils down to open, honest communication.
Talking it through.
Yeah. Discussing expectations, understanding what makes the land unique, and just finding that sweet spot where everyone feels like they're getting real value from the arrangement.
You mentioned this earlier, and I think it's really crucial. This isn't just about access or money. These leases, when done right, are genuinely good for everyone involved. You called it that win-win-win.
Exactly.
For landowners, hunters, and wildlife. Let's look at those benefits in more detail, because this seems like where the bigger picture, the often overlooked impact, really comes into focus.
Yeah, this raises that important question beyond just the transaction. What are the bigger connected benefits? Let's break it down. First, think about wildlife.
All right.
Land that's leased for hunting often stays intact. It's actively managed in many cases. This is huge because it directly cuts down on development pressure.
Less houses, less roads.
Precisely. It reduces habitat destruction and also depredation that's just harm or damage caused by wildlife, maybe to crops or timber. When land is leased, it's much less likely to be chopped up for housing or sold for uses that aren't wildlife friendly.
So it preserves habitat.
It preserves it and often enhances it. An active lease frequently means hunters become sort of de facto land managers.
Because they care about the hunting.
Exactly. They're invested in the property's health. So they might plant food plots, manage invasive plants, maybe even do some selective timber work that actually improves biodiversity, creates richer habitats for all sorts of species, not just game animals. It creates a stable, managed environment, often better than just leaving it alone.
Interesting. Okay, so that's wildlife. What are the hunters?
Well, for hunters, the benefit is pretty fundamental. Leases preserve overall hunting land access. Simple as that.
In a world where access is shrinking.
Exactly. Wild spaces are shrinking. Private land is increasingly posted or off limits. Leases make sure that tracts of land stay open for hunting instead of being sold off to developers or just sitting there unhunted, which can sometimes lead to problems too, like overpopulation.
So it keeps land in the game, so to speak.
It literally keeps land available for hunting access, which is becoming such a valuable and frankly scarce commodity.
Okay. Wildlife hunters, now the landowners, what are the wins for them?
Right. For landowners, the advantages are pretty clear and tangible. First off, it's a significant boost in property revenue. That can help offset rising taxes, mortgage payments, upkeep costs.
Real money.
Real money. It also helps decrease that crop depredation we mentioned, deer eating corn, hogs rooting up fields, that kind of thing. And it minimizes trespass issues.
How so?
Because legitimate hunters on a lease, they're invested in protecting their spot. They tend to police it themselves and deter trespassers.
Extra eyes on the property.
Exactly. And something often overlooked, which I find really interesting, is how leases can impact landowners who might be maybe skeptical about hunting initially.
Okay.
When they see hunting actually has a tangible value, maybe through that lease payment, and then they experience firsthand how mindful, respectful hunters treat their land and the wildlife with care, it can completely change their perspective.
Builds bridges, maybe?
It really can. It shows them the positive, active role hunting can play in land stewardship and how a well-managed lease is actually a genuine asset to them, not a liability.
It really sounds like a powerful, kind of self-reinforcing cycle of benefits when it works well.
It truly can be.
And it's just fascinating how that core idea, landowners charging a fee for access has basically stayed the same since the 1930s, just adjusted for inflation, really.
It really speaks to a fundamental principle, doesn't it? Valuing a resource.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. The foundational principles, the core idea behind hunting leases, it's essentially the same today as it was almost a century ago. And that's really a testament to their inherent value and how effective they are at balancing access, revenue, and conservation.
So to kind of wrap this deep dive up for you listening, what we've really seen today is that hunting land leases, they aren't some passing fad or modern invention.
Not at all.
They're a vital century-old practice. They've got a rich, evolving history, clear definitions, pretty transparent pricing structures, if you know what to look for, and real, tangible benefits.
Interconnected benefit.
Interconnected benefits, exactly, for wildlife, for hunters seeking access, and for the landowners stewarding these properties. From that amazing buck back in Ohio to the huge timberlands of the Southeast, these agreements are actively shaping the hunting landscape across America.
Absolutely. Hunting land leases are now, without a doubt, a mainstay in America. They're deeply woven into the fabric of our outdoor traditions and how we manage land.
Yeah.
It's really not a new way of life in the hunting world at all, but more of a continuation and evolution of a heritage that started, like we said, almost 100 years ago on maybe just a dusty piece of ground down in Texas.
It's quite a legacy.
It is. And maybe a final thought for you to consider. What's truly insightful here is how these seemingly simple agreements, these contracts, really highlight a crucial balance
A balance between what?
between valuing our land resources, promoting sustainable recreation like hunting, and respecting private property rights, all in an increasingly complex world. So as you think about the significance of these leases, maybe consider how these contracts, often just seen as transactions, are actually, in reality, actively shaping the very landscape around us. They're fostering conservation and supporting a more sustainable way to use and enjoy the land, hopefully for generations to come.